There we go. Hello there. My name is John Mast. I lead the marketing for Expedia Group for the cruise line of business. And I've been invited here this evening or today to discuss my adventures with my family on an Antarctica cruise just in January and February of this year aboard the Silver Endeavor with Silver Sea Cruises. I can tell you it was an incredible trip, and I'm happy to just share a few bits about it with you here today. I'll be honest, there's no way I'm going to be able to tell you everything we did or share with you how incredible the service and food and ship itself is in this short moment. But I know you have the trusted experts of Ava and Eric and Chrissy there with you as well. And I'm sure they're going to fill in the gaps that I don't. So without further ado, here's a little about the trip we did and just some of our highlights in a very, I hope, casual and interesting way for you. But honestly, I can say before I begin, the true sense of wonder that you will experience if you decide to do one of these trips is something that I haven't found anywhere else. So enjoy. I hope you enjoy what we have here for you, and let's get into it. So our trip was in fact what they call a fly bridge or a bridge cruise, where we in fact flew into Antarctica versus cruising across the Drake. The Drake can be rough, and this is a nice option for those people that maybe don't have as much time or just simply prefer to avoid the possibilities, because I think one of my colleagues at work said, there's three ways it can go. You can have the Drake Lake, nice and calm, the Drake Shake, where it's a little bit rough, or the Drake Quake, where you're into some pretty big waves. So we opted for the fly cruise and spent 5.5 days cruising the Antarctic Peninsula. And I can tell you again, just spectacular. But let me show you versus tell you. How it begins, you fly down to Chile. You begin in Santiago. You further transfer for a couple more hours down to Punta Arenas, which is really the bottom of the continent. You spend the night, and in the morning you board Antarctica Airways for, in fact, Antarctica. You can see my wife there boarding. All your gear is supplied to you just before you get on. Pants, boots, parkas, everything you need to stay warm. And you get on board and off you go. And it's just spectacular. The anticipation builds as you look out the window and see actually Antarctica for the first time. It's a trip, as you can imagine, has incredible anticipation just to see it out the window for the first time and see the ice and the beautiful hues of blue. It's just incredible. What you're looking at in the middle here is actually the runway. You can see the jet there parked on the gravel. It is without a doubt the most interesting and raw runway I've ever had the opportunity to land on. I wasn't flying, but just being a guest is fun enough. But honestly, you have a clear sense of the fact that you're somewhere where very few people go. Less than 100,000 people per year actually have the opportunity to visit Antarctica. And we were some of the lucky few, boarded the plane and landed here at King George Island. From there, it's a pretty quick transfer over to your Zodiac, where you'll head out to the ship. These are my kids. It was a beautiful, clear day for us. There were penguins all over the beach, nibbling almost on our toes as we were trying to get into the Zodiacs and off towards the ship. But you can see there in the distance the ship. It's just a wonderful machine. Honestly, I've been on many ships, and this one immediately became one of my favorites. It's purpose-built exploration ship for expedition. And I'll share with you more about why that's so great and makes actually a bona fide difference in the trip when you're down there. Once you get aboard, there's a briefing. You're brought up to speed on how the rhythm of the trip's going to go. A typical day on an expedition begins with a morning Zodiac tour or a landing somewhere on Antarctica, back for lunch and a rest, another landing or tour in the afternoon, dinner, a briefing about what happened today and what's happening tomorrow, and interspersed between that, really interesting lectures from all kinds of experts about the area. So really just an incredible opportunity to really have a real immersion into the area. But you can see there, that's a shot in the morning I took of the Zodiacs being launched. I was having coffee up in the library. It's got beautiful views, as you can see. And from there, You head down, and here's my son down in the mudroom. The mudroom is honestly one of the highlights of each day. You can see those little sticks sticking out of the wall. Those are boot warmers. So you leave your shoes there while you're out touring, and when you get back, your shoes are warm. And in the meantime, overnight, people dry their boots and their gloves on these things. And there's convenient lockers for things like your life jackets and the rest. And you can see my son there, make sure he looks good for the day. From there, you head to the side of the ship, and you can see here that on either side of the ship, they have boarding areas where the Zodiacs come along one by one and pick up groups of, I think it's about 8 to 10 people. Into the Zodiacs we go, and out we go deeply into Antarctica, into the ice, onto the beaches, all through different incredible regions, which hopefully I can share with you in some more pictures here. This was our first landing. It was called Brown Bluff. And I call this a penguin obsession. It was our first real penguin colony. I think there were a couple 100,000 pairs of nesting penguins. And you can see here all the different shots of the penguins. These are 4 or 5 of hundreds. You can see how close we got. It's just incredible. You're asked to say, I believe it's 5 meters back from the birds and the wildlife at any given time. And you can see the flags there where you're meant to stay on a trail so you don't cause any disruption to the environment. But I can tell you, these little fellows are curious, and you do quite a bit of moving around to stay out of their way. Here's a few more of my favorite penguin shots. So one down there in the lower corner, I took with, I think it's a 200 mil zoom lens. That's a little tip for you. If you're going, bring a good camera. Your iPhone will work, but you want to have a good camera with a quality zoom so you can get in and really get some shots of the wildlife. If I were to do it again, I think I'd aim to have at least a 300 mil zoom with me. But you can see that little guy got him flying, and that was an exciting moment when I got back to the ship and saw that. But honestly, they're sweet. There's 5, 6, 7 different kinds of them. They're everywhere, swimming through the waters, jumping off the ice, flying through the air, peeking at you. It's whimsical, it's wonderful, and it's just you've got to truly experience it to understand. One of the highlights of the trip is that the captain or the expedition leaders will come on to the PA and announce when something is exciting is happening. And you can see here we were just cruising through the sound, headed to one of our next landings, and all of a sudden we hear orcas on the starboard side. So of course you leave whatever you're doing, eating, relaxing, and you run out to have a look. And there we had the orcas. There were 2 or 3 of them on one side of the ship, and then almost immediately they called for humpbacks on the other side of the ship. And if you look really closely at this picture, you'll see this is actually a baby humpback whale with its mother right below it. And you can't see it in the photo, but they were tucked up right against the ship. And it was a little strange. I couldn't quite understand it. Later, talking to the naturalists on board, what those killer whales, or pardon me, orcas were doing was hunting, and they were hunting the baby humpback. So the mother actually used the ship to hide the baby from the orca whales, which was pretty incredible. This next slide here is a place called Scunthorpe Cove, and this was among my highlights. We arrived early in the morning. As you can see, the water was like glass, and honestly, it is truly one of the most magnificent places you'll ever experience in Antarctica. The mountain there on the left-hand side, you can't tell, but it's as big as if you know grouse or Seymour, it's higher than that. The scale of things is very hard to capture in photos in Antarctica. But that little bridge of ice you see along the bottom there, it could easily be 200 feet high in some places. And then you see the glacier just going up, up, up as the snow piles up. It never melts. And apparently these kinds of coves in the winter are a meter thick with ice, and 2 to 3 months of darkness. So just beautiful wildlife, all kinds of different seals, whales, penguins, as I said, everywhere, just constantly in and out of your environment everywhere you go. It's just unbelievable. It's almost like you don't know where to look. Here was the afternoon Zodiac cruise in the same bay, and the guide we were with was calling it whale soup. They were literally all around us, coming up, coming down, fluke tails up. Just it was incredible. You can't get enough of it. And you can see that's a picture of my daughter there, and you can see literally how close we are. And we try again to always stay back, but the whales are they're coming up all around you. It's amazing. You can see in the background there a sailboat. I think that's about a 50-foot sailboat, and you can see the ice in the background and get a sense that mast has got to be also 50, 60 feet high. And you can see how high the glaciers are in the background. But again, just an attempt to demonstrate some of the scale and all the nature that you get surrounded by. Here again, just some more shots of that. I was really enamored with this. You can see a little outpost station there. The Argentinian government and some of the other South American countries have these little research outposts. Very small, very few people, maybe 3 or 4 people living in these places just a few months of the year while it's actually hospitable. Next up, icebergs. I have, in addition to many pictures of whales and penguins, a ton of pictures of icebergs. These are just a few of my favorites. You will see thousands of them. They are as small as, you know, the little ones you see there in and around the ship, to the size of, honestly, I heard one that the size of Toronto had broken off and was floating around out there, but in all different shapes and sizes, every imaginable hue of blue and turquoise and gray. And as the light and the sun changes, so does the ice. It's just incredible. I really recommend that if you are traveling, bring a good camera and also bring polarizing lens filters for every camera you plan to shoot with, because you're going to need them. There's a lot of light reflecting off the ice and snow. Next up here, just a couple shots of life on the ship. You will be sitting having lunch, and all of a sudden you'll cruise into a region where you're drawn to get up and go outside and take a look. And that's what was happening here. We were cruising through just a beautiful region. The sun came out and we headed outside for a picture. In the other shot there, you can see a little silver sea surprise. One day we're cruising amongst the whales, enjoying our afternoon, and all of a sudden Zodiac pulls up beside us and they're serving fresh champagne, hot cocoa, and I think they had some soup in there too if you were hungry. Just the kind of thing that happens on a silver sea cruise. Really, really tremendous. This was an exceptional place. Again, you can see the vast contrast of the landscape. This is Whalers Bay in Deception Island, and it's actually a crater. You sail in through an opening that's not very wide, maybe, I don't know, a few 100 meters wide, into this massive crater. It's very difficult to photograph it, but you can see volcanic material. You can see the steam rising behind my family there. Literally, the sand is still hot as there's active volcanic activity going on underneath it, but otherwise provides incredible stark contrast to the ice of the day before. And you can see there some of the remnants of an old whaler station where they used to store the oil from the whale and get it ready for export. Just a few shots from around the ship. I can't stress enough to have lunch in this back atrium area around the pool. You can see behind us there just the incredible scenery. You don't want to miss a moment when you're on these cruises. And the great thing about the way this ship is designed, from everywhere you are, there are just vistas in all directions, and you're going to have not only a spectacular lunch, but you're going to have often random announcements of more whales or spectacular scenery that you just want to have a look at. Middle bottom shot there, La Dame. It's a French restaurant on board. You need to reserve it. Can't say enough good things about it. Please do yourself a favor if you find yourself in Antarctica or on any silver sea cruise that has La Dame on board. It's a French restaurant that you really do need to experience. Just phenomenal. So I think this kind of demonstrates the incredible contrast. You're traveling in, if not the one of the most remote regions of the world, and yet as you board your ship and shed your Gore-Tex, you are treated to what can only be described as some of the most superlative service you're going to find anywhere in any hospitality setting. Last thing here for you before I let you go, you literally have to do this. It's called the polar plunge. There's my wife flying off the back of the ship with a rope tied to her just in case she stops breathing or something. They offer you a little bit of libation before you jump, and there's a few hot tubs on board where you can run to afterwards, because I can tell you that this is salt water. It is on the verge of freezing and it is very cold, but it's a tradition when you're in Antarctica to jump on in, and if you make the journey, I think you've got to do everything. You've got to make the time to jump off the ship. It's a lot of fun. Everybody gets pretty excited. There's a lot of adrenaline going, and again, can't say enough good things about it. So with that, I'll say thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen a little bit about my trip. Honestly, as you can see at the beginning there, it was my 7th continent. I've been a lot of places. I've had the fortune through my work to travel to a lot of different regions, including Africa and in the far north. But Antarctica was special, and it aboard the Silver Endeavour, it was extraordinarily special. So if you're considering it, I think you're going to guess what I have to say about it. Take the plunge, give it a shot, and I think you'll be really pleased you did. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your presentations here, and have a lovely afternoon or evening. Thanks.